Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian. I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of Canada. I hope that all of you are having a great weekend so far, or a good start to your weekend. Everyone, in this class, we are looking at an IELTS listening section. We will focus on part 3 and part 4. These are the more challenging, difficult parts of the reading. This will be about art and roads. This is a members, not a members, this is a subscribers chat class. So it's a free class, but you do need to be a subscriber of our YouTube channel. So click that subscribe button. Click the bell for notifications so that you know when these live IELTS classes are happening. We have anywhere from 5 to 7 live IELTS classes each week for you to help you prepare for your IELTS exam. Welcome Carolina, our chat moderator. Welcome to our subscribers. Welcome Shankip, Purba, Harvinder, Akmal Bek, Akira. Nice to see many of you in the class. Students, this lesson is brought to you by aehelp.com. That's academicenglishhelp.com and gieltshelp.com. aehelp.com is our academic IELTS website, support materials. gieltshelp.com is our general IELTS website. We use these websites for our live class teachings, and these websites have tons of materials for you to prepare for your IELTS exam. This is aehelp.com. You can click this big red button that's just behind me, above my head there, for the premium IELTS package that has all of our videos, all of our practice exams, strategies, app for your phone, and lots more. We are affiliated with IDP. We're partnered with British Council. We are an IELTS test registration center. In fact, you can now register for IELTS on our website as well in some countries. So we're excited to help thousands of students every day meet their IELTS goals and improve their English communication. For general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com. Again, click that big red button. We will use the websites today for the listening. I will play the audio for you so you can just sit back and learn. All right, so again, the apps, look for Academic IELTS Help in your app store and look for General IELTS Help in your app store. Download the app, link the app to the web account to learn from both. Follow us on Instagram for live class schedules, IELTS_AE-help or GIELTS help. And if you still have questions, if you're like, well, but I don't know, I'm not sure what's going on, what to do, what's this crazy language called English, you can always send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. That's my email address there. My name is Adrian. All right, Harman says, I don't know why I'm watching as I have already cleared my IELTS, but you really helped me during my preparation. Harman, that's what we love to do. Thank you so much for coming back and hanging in there. Students, if you succeeded on your IELTS exam, it's still good to visit us and learn more English. We're just, generally speaking, a good source to improve your English language and communication. So Harman, it's good to have you back. I do see a lot of students in the class, which is fantastic. We have more classes tomorrow as well. We'll have task 2 and speaking part 3 tomorrow. And then we also have this special class on Light Hall on Sunday that I will be hosting. That will be another speaking class. Light Hall is a really great platform for live learning. So check out the Light Hall class. Click that link that I just put into the chat. Check out our latest video for sure. Always look for our latest HD releases on our YouTube channel. There we go. Says Mita, I'm glad that you're getting a lot of benefit from these classes. Okay, so let's get into these difficult listening sections. So listening parts of the listening section, part 3 and part 4. So it is very important to visualize the information in the listening. Use the questions to help. Okay. That means see the information. Become a part of it. Let me show you what I mean. So this is our 6th IELTS practice exam. And this is section 3 here. Here are the questions. Just for now, I'm going to show you the questions and we'll go over them before we do the actual listening, the audio. So here we can see question number 21. And it reads, how many books has the guest written? Okay, so we know that the audio will be about some guest speaker who is talking about books that they wrote. 1 book, 2 books, or 3 books. Okay, right away, as I read this, I become the author. Okay, so to help me visualize this audio, instead of listening like this student in some IELTS exam center far away from these people and just kind of like, what are they saying? I'm going to be more active. I'm going to be more direct. And I'm going to become the guest. I'm going to be the author. I'm going to think about how many books did I write? Okay, and then what description does the guest give his book? So here immediately I'm thinking like, my book is. And then do I say my book is a position? That doesn't make sense, so it's not going to be an answer. My book is radical. That sounds kind of good. My book is intention. My book is about the intention theory. Maybe. Okay, which is the statement that best describes the intention theory of art? So here, of course, I'm going to say the intention theory of art is. So when you're looking at multiple choice questions, one really good strategy to follow for multiple choice questions, like which statement best describes, is first of all, don't worry about the answers. There's too many answers there. It's too much information. It's too confusing. Okay, so instead worry about the question. Okay, so here's the question. Which statement best describes the intention theory of art? So here the focus is on this intention theory of art. Now, usually in the listening, they're not asking questions, usually. So sometimes you might, but usually nobody is going to say, so what is the best statement to describe the intention theory of art? Instead, you're going to hear a sentence, something like this. Okay, so the intention theory of art is, right? Tommy, Cambridge is very close to the actual test usually because Cambridge ESOL Examination Board makes the IELTS exam. Tommy Show Me is asking, is the Cambridge close to the actual test? Yes, it is, especially if you're looking at the Cambridge past IELTS exams. Those were IELTS exams at some point in the past. Okay, so again, jumping back here to our strategies for multiple choice questions, focus on the question. Focus on the question and not the choices. Those are confusing. Okay, so focus on the question. Change the question into a statement, because that's what you will likely hear, is that. Okay. Sasmita says, you wrote invention instead of intention. Thank you, Sasmita, for that correction. So intention, invention. Yes, you're right, Sasmita. My hand did not do what my brain was telling it to do. All right, and then 24, what is the biggest problem with the intention theory? So here, the biggest challenge or issue with the intention theory is that, okay, so I'm listening for that piece of information. Okay. All right, so that's what I'm doing. And then let's read 25, 26. These are fill in the gaps. They're going to be slightly paraphrased probably. So number 25, according to the host, one of the main goals in art critique is to understand a painting's something. And the intention theory seems best equipped for this task. The guest responds that art is not what we want it to be, but that we must also participate in critique and interpretation. Okay, so when I read something like critique and interpretation, it means the opinion and understanding of art. Now, I bet that some of you, if you were sitting the IELTS exam, at this point, you would be thinking, I'm not a big art fan. Anybody thinking that? I'm not a big art fan. I don't know much about art. I can't do this. Anybody thinking that at this point? Like, whoa, we're doing a listening section and we have to listen to some guy or some girl talking about art and a book that they wrote about art and intention theory and interpretation and critique. What is that, right? Anybody thinking that? Harwinder's like, no. Neela says, I'm here since yesterday. Because of you, I learned new things. All right, well, new things are to be learned today as well, Neela, hopefully. All right. So anybody, thinking that way? Because I get that. So sometimes candidates say that, like, I got this speaking question, or I got this writing question, or I got this listening part, and I just don't know anything about it, and I'm not interested in it. Okay, this is going back to that same piece of advice that I gave just in the last class with the reading. Okay, focus on what you do know. In the IELTS, don't focus on what you don't know. Focus on what you do know. So this is a very important piece of advice. In IELTS, never get lost in negative thoughts. What you do not know, or what you are not interested in. Always focus on the positive. Ask yourself, you'd be surprised, your brain knows a lot. Your brain knows a lot by the time you grow up, okay? Like, and I mean a lot. Like heptabytes of information. Okay, your computer hard drive has no competition compared to your brain. Your brain is a quantum computer. So ask yourself, what do I know about this? Like, what do I know about art? Right? There are different kinds of art: abstract art, surreal art, realistic art. Okay. All right, so focus always on what you do know. So here we have a table and it says complete the table, answer right or wrong. Hey, that's a good sign. It's a 50-50. Yes, no, right, wrong. Okay, we got a 50-50 chance here. Situation. A critic thinks critically about an artwork and judges it to have no meaning. The intention theory says the critic is whatever. Subjective meaning theory says critic is right. Critic does not think critically about an artwork and judges it to have no meaning. Critic is wrong. Subjective meaning theory, critic is something. So here we have two theories, intention theory and subjective theory. And if I'm paying careful attention and I'm using logic, I can figure out that intention theory is the intended meaning of the art from the artist. Okay. Subjective theory is the opinion of the viewer or the artist, maybe. Subjective means personal opinion, right? So I have these kinds of ideas as I'm reviewing this. Okay. And then question 30 says, an art critic is viewing a painting for the first time and wants to critique it using the subjective meaning theory. Determine whether the critic has satisfied the constraints of the theory with regard to his critique of the painting. A, the critic has satisfied the demands of the theory. B, the critic has not satisfied the demands of the theory. 30, the critic looks at the painting for a moment and concludes from his initial impression that the painting lacks aesthetic value. Aesthetic value means is beautiful. Okay. All right, so this kind of question tells me that I have to really listen and understand what these speakers are talking about, so I'm going to focus. And the IELTS for part 3, part 4 listening, you do have to understand what they are saying. It's kind of like you're learning information while you're listening to English. So if you're thinking, well, wow, art and intention theory, what is this? It's like watching a nature documentary in English and learning and understanding, okay? So keep that in mind, students, that part 3 and part 4 of the listening section is not just listening to English, but it's basically learning in English, okay? So part 3 and part 4 of the listening, and reading is kind of the same, especially for the second, third passages. So part 3 and part 4 of the listening are not just challenging because you are listening to English on a specific subject matter, but that you are also often learning new information. When I did the IELTS exam in Budapest last year or a year and a half ago, the part 4 topic I still remember was about the use of pesticides in Australian farming or agriculture. I've read a lot of information in my life, but I have never listened to or read about information using pesticides in Australia in farming and agriculture. So that was new information for me, just like any other person who sat the IELTS exam that day. So I had to listen, understand, and then answer questions, right? Which makes sense because that's what you are going to do when you go to live and work and study in an English-speaking country, is you're going to hear new information, and your job will be to understand that information and use it, right? So it's no surprise that listening 3 and 4 has that. Let's listen, students, and let's answer some questions. So I'm going to play the audio for listening part 3, what we just looked at. And then we are going to answer the questions while we listen, but not in the chat. Keep your answers out of the chat, and then we'll look at the answers together afterwards. Okay? So again, for this, I'm going to our website, aehelp.com. Once again, you can click this big red button to join our premium IELTS package. That's where you have all the materials for these live classes. It's kind of like getting your textbooks for the live classes. It makes sense. So if you like these live classes and you plan to come every day or at least a couple times a week, join the full course so that you have the materials that we use in the live classes. And when you do, you'll have your My Student account. And in your My Student account, you have computer-based practice exams, an interactive course, paper-based exams, PDFs, and then you have the audio CDs. And this is test 6, so it's going to be CD 6 and listening 3. Okay, everybody, I'm going to play the audio here. Get ready. Turn up your speakers or your headphones, and let's look at these questions and let's answer. Here we go.
Now turn to section 3. Take some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Listening section 3. You will hear a radio host and his guest discussing the virtues of various art forms. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Our next guest is the curator of a major art gallery in the city who has just released his second book on the virtues of art. We're pleased to have Mr. Edgar Patterson here today. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here, and please call me Edgar.
Edgar, of course. Now, in your first book, published 4 years ago, you focused on performance artwork such as plays, musical concerts, films, and other such works. Your second book is a little closer to home for you. It concerns purely creative fine art.
Well, yes. It deals with the aesthetic virtue of different painting styles.
Okay, so give our viewers a quick rundown on what your book is about. Does it make an argument? I mean, does your book take a position on a certain issue in the world of art?
Yes. My book does take a position, and a rather radical one. The main thesis of my book is that the meaning we associate with a painting exists purely within ourselves. This is in stark contrast to many commentators who believe that the author of a painting gives the painting its meaning. Under this framework, if an artist intends his painting to represent the fear of an orphan child, then this is the one and only meaning such a painting can have. We might call this the intention theory of art. Conversely, my theory is that no matter what the intention of the author is, the meaning of the painting comes from the viewer. The meaning is exactly what the viewer thinks it is. This solves an important problem with the intention theory of art, namely that we do not have access to the mind of the artist, and therefore we do not have access to the painting's meaning at all.
Very interesting, Edgar. But doesn't the intention theory work as a sort of grounding for artistic analysis? What I mean is, while we might not know the meaning the artist intended, isn't the point of art to try to discern this meaning? If art is just whatever we want it to be or feel it as, doesn't that somehow make it less valuable?
That's an astute critique of my position, but one I have an answer for. My response is that art is not merely what we want it to be or feel it as. We can still participate in our critique and interpretation. All I want to say is, in the end, it is up to us to discern the meaning and value of paintings on our own.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 27 to 30.
Now, let's talk about one type of controversial art, abstract art. How does your, can I call it a subjective theory of meaning?
Yes, that is fair.
Okay. How does your subjective theory of meaning apply to something like modern or abstract art? Art which doesn't tell an obvious story or have a clear meaning. Many people think that such works of art have no meaning at all.
It's certainly an interesting case, but one which my theory is well matched to deal with. You see, abstract art has its critics. Like you say, they think it has no meaning at all. However, other people think abstract works of art have all sorts of meanings. Now, under the intention theory, most of these commentators will be wrong, since the work of art either has a meaning or it doesn't, and if it does, then it only has a single meaning. So under the intention theory, only those critics who discern the specific meaning of the artist will be successful. My theory, however, results in each critic being correct in their own way. For example, if, after critically analysing a certain abstract work of art, I determine it is meaningless, then it is meaningless. Because the meaning of an artwork comes from within, I cannot be wrong, and neither can other people. The critic who sees a metaphor for suffering and the critic who views it as something entirely different are both right. We are all correct in our interpretation, as long as we've given the painting a fair critique.
What do you mean by a fair critique?
Well, I mean it is not enough to merely look at a painting and write it off immediately as meaningless. One must go through a certain process. That said, there are certainly other...
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, and check your answers in that half minute. Look for spelling mistakes. Look for missed question instructions. Make sure to use that half minute wisely. Don't read the next questions. Actually check the questions that you answered. Okay, let's look at these and let's answer these. So here, let's jump back to question 21. Kind of starts a little bit on the easier end. They actually give you the answer to this 2 times. So number 21, how many books has the guest written? And this was very clear because the host is like, oh, your first book was about this, and then your second book was about this. And so as the artist, I was like, okay, I've written a couple of books there. Akira says the answer is B. And Akira, you're correct. Okay, so it's 2 books, and they tell you this kind of 2 times. Once the host says our guest has written 2 books, and then she actually says the first book and then the second book. So that was that. Okay, so here we go. Question 22. What description does the guest give his book's thesis? Now here I thought, okay, if I'm the author, I would say my book does have a thesis, and he actually said that. He said almost exactly that. He said, my book presents this thesis and quite a something. Number 22, definitely not a position, because that's just a synonym. It doesn't make sense. Okay. Number 22 is radical. Okay, radical means a new and extreme thesis. A position would be simply a thesis, so this cannot be the answer. So therefore does not make sense. Okay, so what description does the guest give his book's thesis? A thesis. It doesn't make sense for number 22. Intention theory could be a tricky one there, but he says radical. He very clearly says radical. Okay. All right. Number 23. Which statement best describes the intention theory of art? Now, the word intention or intend, it's important to understand this word here, the will or want to do, right? When you intend to do, then it means that you want to do that. You're driven to do that, okay? So the intention theory of art is the author creates an artwork's meaning. It means that, this is where I have fun with drawing. So I draw a stick man. My goal was to draw a happy stick man. Did I succeed? With a cap. Let's put a hat on him. My goal was to draw a happy stick man with a hat. Did I succeed? Hopefully. That's the intention theory of art, right? So I give the artwork its meaning. Okay, I create the meaning of the art. Okay, so the right answer there then is the author creates. The author intends the meaning of the art. Right? That's the intention theory. What's the biggest problem? So there's a big problem with this theory. Okay. Baljinder, if you have a question about your speaking, send me an email. Ghazi says, the biggest problem is we do not have access to the mind of the artist. And you're right. Amra, you're right. Masai, you're right. So if I draw something like this, and I ask you, what is that? You're like, I don't know. I can't see inside of your brain. What are you trying to draw there? A confusing map of the city of Victoria. So you don't have access to the mind of the artist. You don't know what the artist is thinking, and that's the biggest problem. Is if the painting is not absolutely clear, then you don't really know what the painting is, right? So that's number 24. It's A. We do not have access to the mind of the artist. So this speaker, this guest, presents another kind of theory or another approach to understanding art. The speaker says that you can think about art from the viewer. So you are looking at the art so you can give it meaning. Okay. Number 25. According to the host, one of the main goals in art critique is to understand a painting's something. Keep it simple. IELTS is not that difficult. Here you have to fill in the blank. What is that? So what is our goal when we're looking at a painting or a sculpture? What is our... Yeah, absolutely. We try to understand the meaning of the art form. What does it mean? What is it showing us? Is it a picture of two people hugging? Is it trying to elicit an emotion like passion or anger? What's the goal of this art piece, right? What's the meaning of the art piece? Okay. All right. And then number 26, the guest responds that art is not something what we want it to be, but that we must also participate in critique and interpretation. Now, this was a very specific word. And he actually uses the word respond. I have a response to that. He says art is not merely, it's not nearly, Massey, it's merely. Merely means just. Okay? So it's not merely what we want it to be, and you have to have the correct spelling. You have to know the word. Even I spelt it wrong. It's merely. It's not just what we want it to be, but that we must participate in it. Okay, and so again, if you missed it, if you didn't catch this one, don't worry about it. A very important tip for the listening section in the IELTS to get a good score. If you miss an answer, take a guess later, but make sure to keep going with the audio. Don't panic. Okay, don't freak out. All right, so here we had this table, and this is really where, you had to understand what is this intention theory, and you had to understand the subjective meaning theory, what they call the subjective meaning theory. So intention theory is the artist's intention. Subjective meaning theory means the meaning that is given by the viewer. Okay? Use logic, use step by step for this kind of a table. Okay, so first of all, you have the situation. In the situation, the critic, so the person analyzing the art, thinks critically about the artwork. So they're like, okay, look, there's a head, and there's a body, it's a stick man, and judges it to have no meaning. The intention theory says that the critic is what? So if I'm looking at an art piece, like let's say like this, and somebody says, well, that has no meaning. I gave it meaning because I'm the artist, and I think these are waves on an ocean. Somebody might think it's a campfire. Somebody else might think it's the teeth of a shark in a shark's mouth, right? So here, I only have two choices. So you should not write correct, Niela, because according to the question, I can only write right or wrong. So answer right or wrong. Don't write correct. If you write correct, you'll get it wrong, which is very ironic to get the word correct wrong. So you can only write right or wrong. So critic thinks critically about the artwork, judges it to have no meaning. Here, subjective meaning theory, the critic is right because they're the critic. They're the person viewing the art. But in the intention theory, where the artist gives the meaning to the art, it would be wrong. Because the artist always gives some kind of meaning to their art. Artists generally never have meaningless art. In fact, if the artist creates meaningless art, the meaning of the art is that it's meaningless. Which I know sounds crazy, but it does make sense. Okay? So here, logically, if I understand what these people are talking about, these two different theories, then it has to be wrong. Okay? All right, now, in the next one, critic does not think critically about an artwork and judges it to have no meaning. Okay, the critic is wrong in the intention theory, and in the subjective meaning theory, they are also wrong, because the author of this book says that the only way that the subjective meaning theory works is if you give it fair critique. Meaning that you have to think about it. So you can't just say, oh, that's nothing. So if I do something like this, and you look at it just for 2 seconds and you go, oh, that's nothing. It's not fair. You have to look at it. Oh, what is that? It's a shell. Oh, what's that? It's the body. Okay, it's a snail. It's just missing the eyeballs. There we go. It's a beautiful snail. It's smiling. So you have to pay attention to the art piece. You can't just look at it for 2 seconds and say, it's garbage. It's nothing. It's just two colors on a wall. Look at it for a little bit. Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something deeper there. So you have to critique, right? Okay. All right. And this last two, so the critic understands the author's meaning. So again, think of examples. Okay. So you look at my drawing and you go, hey, Adrian just drew a very cute snail. It's maybe SpongeBob's best friend, Gary. And you understand what I'm writing. You're like, Adrian's drawing snails. Why am I drawing snails? I don't know. But anyway, you get that it's a happy snail. And you can clearly tell that. So in the intention theory, the critic is right or wrong? Number 29. The critic is right. Of course. You understand what it means. Why wouldn't you be right? So you're right. And in the subjective meaning theory, you're right as well. Okay? So you understand the artist. That's why the easiest kinds of art, of course, are realistic art, right? Where there's realism. So you'd be right. That's right, Nam Tran. Yeah. Okay, so then we have 30, which is an inference type question where they give you a situation. So the art critic is viewing a painting for the first time and wants to critique it using the subjective meaning theory. Determine whether the critic has satisfied the constraints or the parameters of the theory with regards to his critique of the painting. So number 30, the critic looks at the painting for a moment and concludes from his initial impression that the painting lacks aesthetic value. So I look at this painting for just one moment and you say, hey, that is not beautiful. It is an ugly snail. But then you look at it a little bit longer and you realize, hey, that snail's got beautiful eyelashes, blue eyes, and 2 beautiful teeth. It is a beautiful painting. But initially, you only looked at it for a second. You didn't see the eyelashes. You didn't see those beautiful teeth. So you thought, it's nothing there. So A, the critic has satisfied the demands of the theory. B, the critic has not satisfied. So if I look at an art piece for just a quick second and I say it's garbage, does that satisfy the subjective meaning or subjective meaning theory of art? That's right, Niela. That's right, Ghazi. That's right, Akira. No, it doesn't, because of what the speaker says. The speaker says you have to give it a fair critique, right? So you have to look at it for a little bit. Okay, absolutely. So the answer here is B. Okay. All right, students, how did you do? What did you get out of 10 for this part 3? How was your score from 10? For part 3, your goal should be at least 6 or more. So you should try to get at least 6 plus. Okay, 6 plus should be your target. If you're not getting 6 plus, you need to check why. You need to look at the transcripts. You need to listen to the audio again. Don't just jump to another listening exercise and go, whatever, I did a bad job there. I'll just do some other listening. Hopefully I'll get a better job. And that's not a good way. You have to check your mistakes. Why are you making mistakes? Okay. So Akira, if you got 7 from 10, that's pretty solid. All right. All right. Good. So let's take a look at section 4. Section 4 will be about roads, and this time we're going to listen and answer without looking at the question. So a little bit more challenging. Question 4 is continuous. There's no breaks. You listen, you answer, and then we will go over the answers together. So here we go back to our website for the materials. Again, like I say, if you want to get the materials for these live classes, join the premium IELTS course. One-time payment, lifetime access, can't go wrong. Okay, so get ready to listen, everybody. Here comes listening part 4.
Now turn to section 4. Take some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listening Section 4. You will hear a lecture about road infrastructure and its connection to economic prosperity. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Roads have been connected to economic prosperity for millennia. The first roads were thought to have been created by repeated animal grazing and then utilized by humans as ready-made routes for travel between adjacent lands. These roads, evidence for which exists going back 12,000 years, were likely not connected so much to economic prosperity as to survival itself. These roads allowed hunter-gatherers faster access to greater swaths of land. The first paved roads were used in ancient Egypt about 4,500 years ago. Historians theorize that these roads were the first roads used for trade in our history. These roads also would have been used to transport items, such as building supplies. Though rivers were much more practical thoroughfares for the transport of goods, certain goods from certain areas could not be transported by boat, and this necessitated the creation of roads for economic reasons. The Silk Road, though not precisely a road, is one of the most famous trade routes in history. Composed of many types of road, the Silk Road stretched from China and Thailand in the east all the way through the Middle East and terminating in Western Europe. These different routes of the Silk Road brought myriad items from the east to the west, including, of course, silk. This brought economic prosperity to China and surrounding regions for many centuries. The Silk Road was so valuable for commerce that it persisted for over 1,500 years. The Roman Empire was the first major manufacturer of a system of roads. At its height, the Roman Empire contained 29 major roads, totaling over 75,000 kilometers. That's enough road to go around the world twice.
Sorry about that. That was accidental. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll jump back here to the right page and then continue from there. Hopefully you're following along. A little bit of an advantage here. Okay, back to this question. I'll rewind just a slight bit.
Silk Road was so valuable for commerce that it persisted for over 1,500 years. The Roman Empire was the first major manufacturer of a system of roads. At its height, the Roman Empire contained 29 major roads, totaling over 75,000 kilometers. That's enough road to go around the world twice. Notably, this is almost the precise total length of the modern United States interstate highway system. These roads connected the vast lands of the empire and brought an intertwined economic prosperity to the diverse regions of the empire. Furthermore, the roads were used for military transportation, giving the Romans a massive strategic advantage over their less advanced adversaries. Through the Middle Ages, roads continued to be built and used for trade and commerce, though technological advances were virtually non-existent. Though tar-based roads were used briefly in the Arab Empire in the 8th century, this technology would not take off for another millennium. Today, our roads and highways connect our communities, countries, and economies. They are the modern trade routes by which we are all connected to each other. The modern world would not be possible without the vast expanse of road infrastructure. One interesting development in the history of road infrastructure was the advent of underground systems. The first such system, the London Underground, opened in 1863. Such subterranean routes greatly increase the volume of human life that a city can sustain, thus increasing that city's economic output. London would not be a fraction of the economic powerhouse it is today without its underground rail system. The same can be said for virtually every other major economic centre. Underground systems are the next generation of economic generators. While roads move goods which create economic prosperity, underground systems move human capital, which creates further economic prosperity. What is the next great advance in ground transportation? Some futurists have theorized about a system of tubes propelled by air pressure or other means, which would transport individuals vast distances in short times. Such a system could move humans at unprecedented speeds, perhaps with an economic footprint far less than that of subterranean networks. Such tubes could even be built underwater. Imagine such a system connecting New York to London or Tokyo to San Francisco. It would be incredible. Whatever lies ahead for humanity, roads have gotten us to where we are, and they are very likely to play a prominent role in getting us to where we will be next, in one form or another.
That is the end of section 4.
All right, so that's section 4 with a slight interruption. But again, in the real IELTS exam, you wouldn't get interrupted unless there were some kind of technical issue with the computer or something, which happens rarely. Okay. All right, so here we go. This is about roads. And let's answer these questions, and I'll give you a bit of strategy while we're answering the questions. So you're definitely listening for some key words like first roads in this case, okay? So the speaker says the first roads were created by what? And it's no more than 2 words. So in this case, it is 2 words. And Amra says it's animal grazing. Masai agrees. Masai has the correct spelling here. Okay, so animals grazing or animal grazing. That's when animals are eating the vegetation. Okay, so animal grazing. Animals going yum, 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 eating the grass and then creating a path. If you have ever walked a field or a forest, you often see small little trails that are created by animals. Okay, so animal grazing was the correct answer there, which were used for hunting and for survival, right? Not yet for economy or else. Okay. All right, number 32. The roads were necessary for the transportation of many goods. What was much more practical thoroughfare for the transport of goods in ancient times? So roads were good, but a long time ago, and they talk about Egypt here, they used this instead of roads. Amra, you're close, but you would still get it wrong. Ghazi, it wasn't transporting boats, because it would be it'd be boat transport or transporting by boats. Thoroughfare means like the way or the method. So instead of a road, they used rivers. Okay, and it has to be plural, not just singular. It's not like the river, one river, but it's rivers. Okay, so not boats, rivers. Okay, boat was the tool, but the thoroughfare, this is the word that you have to learn here. Thoroughfare is like the type of passage. Okay. All right, number 33. Which of these roads total approximately 75,000 kilometers? This is a multiple choice question. Okay, take notes. So here, the two that I got was U.S. highways and Roman roads. They talked about the Silk Road, but they didn't say that the Silk Road is 75,000 kilometers, okay? The speaker says the Romans had a system of roads that were about 75,000 kilometers. And then the speaker even uses this. The speaker says, which is about the same as the modern day interstate system. Okay, so it makes that comparison, right? So 1 and 3 for sure. So the correct answer is A. Okay, you have to be accurate. You have to be specific here. Okay, Numtran says the Roman and the U.S. roads. Absolutely. Same thing here. So this is two questions, 34 and 35. Again, when you have questions where you have to choose two or more answers, the best strategy is to take notes. Now, even in the computer-based exam, you have a piece of paper and you have a pencil, so you can take notes, okay? What were the two benefits? Okay, so it's two benefits. So I have to choose two here. Of the Roman system of roads, and I was able to write down they were able to improve their economy and they were able to move around their military using the roads. Okay, so economic prosperity for the city of Rome? No, because it wasn't the city of Rome, it was the empire of Rome. B, increased mobility of the Roman armies. That looks good. Yes, they moved around their armies. Armies is another way to say military. Okay. Rapid technological advances. Did not hear anything about that. The importation of luxury goods from China. That was the Silk Road. Did not hear much about that. Broad economic prosperity for the empire of Rome. That looks good. Okay, so the two correct answers here were B and E. In the paper-based exam, it does not matter which order you put these into the answer sheet, as long as you put one for one question, the other for the other question. Okay, so B and E. Pay careful attention and watch for these weird little tricky words like city of Rome. I think most people know that there is a city of Rome in Italy, but a long time ago there was the Empire of Rome. That was not a city, it was an empire that had many different cities in it. Okay, and then here we had to match. This is a very common question in your IELTS exam for the listening. You have to match the subject with the information. So here we had ancient roads, and then we had subway systems, and then we had future transportation, and then D, it's an interesting one here, it's all of them. Okay. So number 36, increases economic activity, so making more money, more business. A, B, C, or D? What do you think? Hamza, if you're getting 5.5 in your speaking, book a speaking interview with us on the website, and I can tell you exactly why you're getting 5.5 in your speaking. Okay, especially if you got the same score 4 times. Okay, Amra says it's D. It's all of them. Ghazi agrees. Putri says D as well, and it is D. So it's all of them. When we listen to this audio carefully, they say the Roman Empire, using ancient roads, of course, increased its economy. They talk about the subway system, and they said the economic prosperity of London relies on the subway system. And in the future, I'm sure we will be moving money around using roads. Responsible for the growth of modern cities. What helped to build modern cities? Ancient roads? I hope you did not answer that. I guess it might be possible, but it's kind of a weird answer to say modern cities are built with ancient roads. Future transportation, it hasn't happened yet, so there's really only one answer that you can logically choose for this, and it has to be B, right? It has to be subway systems. So when you go to major cities like Tokyo, New York, Toronto, you have subways. You have underground subway systems. London, right? A lot of the big cities, Beijing, Shanghai, right? B. Used for military transportation. Soldiers in a subway? Bad idea. Soldiers on future roads? Hopefully not. Ancient roads? Yes. I mean, it said the Romans used their military or moved their military on roads, right? Nowadays, the military kind of uses roads, but doesn't really. They use more air transport, water transport. Moves human capital. So moves people. Subway, right? Subway specifically moves humans from A to B around the city. Human capital. Okay. So DBAB so far, and then will move humans at unprecedented speeds. Will, future, right? It's the last one, number 40. Has to be C. Very good. Amrat Ghazi, very good. Miss A. Okay, nice. Yeah, so it has to be C. All right, how did you do? So if you were here last week and you did part 1 and part 2, by the way, if you missed that class, you can see that video on our YouTube channel. If you like these lessons and you want to see more lessons like this, definitely subscribe so you get a notification of when we have these live classes, right? So how did you do out of 20? In a perfect world, okay, for part 3, part 4, you want to get at least 12 plus, okay? If you're getting less than 12, because you will probably lose a couple of marks in part 1 and part 2 as well. So, you know, for a band 7, you want to get at least 30 out of 40 correct. Okay, so you want to get at least 12 of these correct in part 3 and part 4. Ghazi, if you got 16, Amra, if you got 17, that's fantastic. Okay. Akira, 14 is not bad, okay? Part 3 and part 4 are challenging. So if you got 14 in part 3 and part 4 total, it's okay. You can still get a decent mark, okay? Try Duke Fum, 13 is not bad. Students, you have a score calculator on the website. So if you go to the website and you look for the score calculator, another way you could do it is just type it. So this is aehelp.com score calculator. Score dash calculator. You know what? Better yet, I will put it into the chat. So if you check out this, https://aehelp.com/score calculator. That will open up score calculator where you can type in your score. So if you did the class last week, part 1, part 2, and you got this one and you remember your score and you add them together, for example, you got 32. 32 is a 7.5. If you got 30, it's a band 7. Okay. If you got 16 correct here, you'll probably get another 16 correct in part 1 and 2. So you're probably going to be close to 7.75 for sure. Okay, Harwinder? All right, now watch the reading sections. Academic reading score calculator is different than the general IELTS. So if you're doing general IELTS, make sure you're at gieltshelp.com, the general IELTS version and the general IELTS score calculator. The listening section is the same, but the reading is different. It's calculated a little bit differently. Okay, so pay attention to that. All right, academic IELTS, general IELTS, different score calculator for the reading section, same score calculator for the listening section. Akira, if you got 27 total, 27 is a 6.5. Ayush, 32 is 7.5. Students, that's it for this class. That's it for this listening. And I hope that you keep up the good studies. I hope you come back, and I hope that you sign up for our premium IELTS course at aehelp.com. Again, it's a one-time payment for lifetime access. gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. All you need to do is go to our website and then just click those big red buttons. We are an IDP and British Council partner. I'm a certified British Council agent. You are in great hands with us. Just click this join now. Boom. Somebody mentioned the IELTS Prep app in the chat. It's an okay app, students, but be careful. A lot of the material in the IELTS Prep app is easier than your real exam. That's the one problem with that. And I honestly, I have no problem with other apps and other websites. Use as many as you can to prepare and improve your English. Just make sure that you're ready for the level of difficulty of the IELTS exam. We really make sure that our materials show you the real challenge of the IELTS exam. If you're just preparing with something like IELTS Prep, the app, you're going to be in for a surprise, okay? And a big surprise at that, all right? So be careful. Some materials that are quite easy compared to the real IELTS. Okay, everyone, that's it for this class. That's it for me. I hope that you come back tomorrow. Members, we've got a Task 2 writing class tomorrow early. Well, early for me, at 5:30 in the morning. And then we've got a speaking part 3 class. Also, we got a light hall class on Sunday. So get ready for that. Have a lovely rest of your day or your evening. Sweet dreams if you're going to bed. And see you tomorrow. Much love to all of you, wherever you are in our great big world. I'm Adrian, signing out from Canada. Bye for now.